I'll put the stopwatch on because I think we're running a bit late, and you're probably all watching the royal wedding, aren't you? So I've turned down my invite to be here today, as you can imagine, but it's happening as we speak. So a bit of background for myself. I've spent the last probably 10 years or 12 years working in search, not SEO search, I mean search as a technology, as compared to databases, time and autonomy, time at fast search and transfer. I then went on to co-found Globrix.com, which was a UK real estate portal which aggregated around 10,000 individual real estate websites every day and grew very rapidly. We still run that site, but it was effectively sold to Daily Mail Group. Since then, we launched a technology business, which effectively was the technology we put behind Globrix. I believe there's two distinct types of classified business in the world. There's market leaders, and then there's the rest. And that is to say, you can be a Rightmove or a Sologer that turns over 60 or 80 million dollars or pounds a year and is worth £1 billion. But then there's a load of businesses trying to make small margins in small territories, in different countries, in different verticals, in niches, where technology costs and product costs are absolutely key. They cannot afford to spend millions and millions on that. So our obsession was driving those costs down. Software as a service is one way of doing that. So just some of you may know what this is, but software as a service is effectively a software model where the software application is hosted somewhere else and you access it over the web. A really good example is Salesforce.com, which many of you here may already use. Only 10 years ago, people would have been installing software products like ACT, or even huge ones like Oracle, spending hundreds of thousands of pounds a year running a CRM solution, which is exactly the same, to all intents and purposes, as the company next door to them. And Salesforce cornered that market. But there are thousands of other applications that are effectively software as a service. I mean, Gmail, Hotmail, even Google AdWords is essentially a software as a service product, something you access over the web. You don't have to install it. You don't have to bring it in locally, get a password, and you use it. The interesting thing about software as a service, though, it's more than just applications, as I'll go on to speak about. There's complete business solutions now which can be accessed over the web, a whole suite of products. And according to research recently, IDC, more than 50% of Fortune 500 companies in the US already use software as a service in their business. That's not just their staff accessing Hotmail. That's actually a business application. And I don't know really a software vendor in the world that isn't considering some sort of application which is software as a service. Now, the key benefits clearly are lower total cost of ownership. If you look at email, the cost of running, say, a Google email client versus using Microsoft Exchange Server, I mean, you're probably looking at a 10-to-1 ratio in cost. So we all know that. It's all quite simple. It doesn't affect all of us. But generally, with software as a service, there's smaller upfront costs. You don't have to develop things. The product comes ready developed and just customizes. There's generally a much faster time to market because of that as well. The product's already there. Definitely a reduction in size of the technology team. And I think one of the key ones is take advantage of global innovation pools. Now, I'll talk about classified in a minute, but I think we're all trying to do the same thing in this business, really. Pretty much everyone. You know, everyone thinks they're differentiating, but there's 80 to 90% of every solution everyone in this room has that's probably the same. And having a global innovation pool where you can share product innovation is absolutely key, because on your own, with 3 or 4 developers, or even 5 to 10, you're not going to be able to achieve it. And there's one other very important thing. On my travels around the world talking to media companies when we used to sell search technology as faster autonomy, was a number of times I heard CEOs and FDs feel that they were held to ransom by their IT team. In other words, nothing was possible. It was blocked by the CTO. We couldn't possibly develop that. That can't be done in time. We wouldn't want to do that. It's going to destroy our business. And I think more and more, using external suppliers, fundamentally, it's easier to negotiate contracts with external sources than potentially internal employees, which is an interesting point. Generally, though, benefits of SaaS also run in the cloud, reduced hosting costs. Everyone here has probably some access to Amazon EC2 and the benefits of actually using those sort of hosting services. And, of course, another benefit, pay-as-you-go. So most online SaaS services are pay-as-you-go rather than these massive upfront costs. Now, there's also some huge issues with using software as a service. You could potentially lose complete control over the application you're trying to run. Now, if that's just email, that may not be a problem, but if it's your entire online classified business, it could be huge. The release cycles of your product development are going to be dependent on the supplier. In other words, you can't dictate when it's released. You have to wait for them to release it for you. You may have seen that many software as a service products offer simplified functions, a dumbing down of the technology to enable you to support a generic product, which can be an issue. It might not be an issue. It might be something you have to compromise on. You don't build up the internal expertise that might take your business further forward. You might invest in a solution today that in 1 year's time doesn't meet your business roadmap. In other words, you choose the wrong supplier or the wrong technology. And you may have a fear overall, which is the one I see most, is that you don't have product differentiation. So people, I think, generally feel that their technology development for their online classified business is key because that gives them a differential element in their business. We'll talk about that in a minute. Security is another interesting one. I had somebody come to me the other day when we were talking to them saying, this was a very large media company saying they couldn't run something in software as a service because they were worried about security. I don't know where that came from, but we all use online banking, and that's about as secure as it gets. So really, security shouldn't be an issue. You should have an SLA, and it should be absolutely correct. So this leads us, more importantly, to software and online classifieds, and I need a drink now. So there's what, 150 people in a room, 100 companies. You're probably spending £100 million a year developing technology solutions for online classifieds between you. That's my guesstimate. It really doesn't cost that much. You know, everybody here is trying to do exactly the same thing. They've got some data they're aggregating. They put it into a search solution. They display it through a user interface. They serve some ads against it. A few of those get boosted to the top. Some of them get bigger images. Some of them turn yellow if you pay a bit more. But fundamentally, it's something that could easily be commoditized. So I fundamentally believe that although there are differentiators in your product, and I'll talk about that again later, most of an online classified solution, whether it be for jobs, for property, for cars, can be commoditized as part of an online service. Of course, there are very different qualities of that online service, but it can be commoditized. For about 10 years now, there's been many companies, many of you may have heard of Magix in the UK, which is job boards, but companies like that are effectively running templated solutions for classifieds, so that rather than build your own development team, you can go and pay an upfront fee, a monthly fee, and you get a job board, you put your colors and your logo along it, and effectively you can run that as a service, saving you a lot of money. But the feedback often with these solutions was that people found that the user interface was generally very poor. It had to be very simplified in order to make it supportable, if you like, by a single company in the middle. Often seen, I think, people seen as a simple or quick fix against an internal solution. In other words, we may build our own later when we want it better, but for now we'll just outsource it. It's just a quick fix. And I think that generally in the market of online classifieds, it's led to a certain amount of skepticism about outsourcing the asset, if you like, of the technology and the product functions within an online classified business. But I think there's an important question really there is the technology the key asset of an online classified business? You know, if you look at most of the big, successful online classified businesses in the world, I've named a few already, Rightmove, Sologer, Autotrader, etc. Is their technology really the differentiator in their business? Is that honestly the reason why they are so successful? And I personally believe it isn't. The reason they're so successful is because they've got a great brand, they've got great marketing, they've got a great sales team. They have got great technology as well, in the sense that the site is live, the site is usable, the site functions correctly. But I don't think any of them you can turn to, in the biggest in the market, where you say they've got a killer feature. You know, they've got something in their user interface that means that that's why they have 10 million users a month, and that's why we have 1 million. Unless anyone can name one, I can't think of one. They tend to, in fact, be quite the opposite. They tend to be very simple. They tend to have kept things very clean so that they can manage it on a massive scale. And I think that's really, really the interesting point here, that it's very easy with your own technology internal development to rush around trying to find the killer feature when, in fact, there may never be one. It might actually be just about anything. It may be like the newspaper business. It's about brand. It's about readership. It's about loyalty. In fact, talking to newspaper business and looking at Saas more generally, the world of the web was supposed to take away the cost and all of the people out of the media business, wasn't it? No more machines for printing presses, no more paper, no more factories, no huge numbers of staff. But I think generally what's happened is we seem to have replaced all of those different pieces with IT directors and product managers and SEO people, and so you've almost just the idea of this sort of huge profit that's generated through online businesses has gone because the product costs have ended up getting so high. But I think that over time, thanks a lot, I think, to open source software, generally, there are now a lot more flexible solutions on the market. And I think what's interesting is that there are solutions now where you can have a menu of services. You don't have to offload your whole online business to another company. You can actually keep control of the bits you think are important to you. And if you look at the term now people seem to use in this market, it's actually, well, pronounce it PaaS if you like, but it's the idea really of a concept of a platform as a service. And so rather than talking about a single application like an email that you access over the web, this is a complete platform. So anybody here who's responsible for building online classified platforms will know that it's not just one piece of technology. It might be 10 or 20. It's going to be a search engine, a database. It's going to be a feed management tool, a user interface. And that means that rather than simply trying to consider that whole beast, if you like, as one product, you can actually start considering it as the sum of the parts. And I think then it gets a bit more comfortable to manage the idea of software as a service or platform as a service. The whole idea is that this still can be accessed over the internet. But we're even seeing people now in the market that are offering this locally hosted. So in fact, you can get somebody to actually externally manage your solution, which you run internally, if you like. You don't just give it away to a third-party company. As I said, not really simply just an online application, but a complete business suite, which might contain the hardware, the hosting, the CRM, the advertising, the search, and the complete application suite. And I think the key to platform as a service or software as a service, if you consider using it, is the level of detail in your service level agreement, the SLA, for those of you whose English isn't the first language. The SLA probably is your guarantee card. That contract you sign that says what you get for your money and how it will be delivered is absolutely key. But I think the other level is how do you get access to this sophisticated platform? So, unfortunately, this is distorted a bit from the one I originally did. But if you look at the technology in a normal platform, as I said, you've got content feeds. So this is your client sending you data via XML or other sort of nonsense Excel spreadsheets. Web crawling. I'm sure lots of you now do some web crawling. An API to push all this data into some sort of search solution or CRM solution where you can actually process the content. You can do address matching. You can add geocodes for mapping. The sort of platform where you can actually do feature enhancement. You can take out entity extraction. You can then manage your feeds, manage your crawls, do all your user management, ad booking. How do I make somebody premium? How do I know if they've got a subscription? How do I check how much traffic we've given them? How do I check how many leads you've given them? And then finally to the user interface. Now, when I talk to people in this business, they always focus on this top part. But in fact, I know from building these myself, and anyone else in the business hopefully will agree with me, is that actually the work is the bottom bit. But this bit is the one that I believe you can commoditize. You know, the work here, actually building a system that can control your advertising, control all of the different parts of this solution, make sure that when this data comes in from this crawled website, you know it's the same company that has paid to have their result boosted to the top. It's actually very, very complicated. And often when a business person comes to a CTO and says, but I need to change my advertising model, and they simply think that means making the photos bigger on the screen, they don't realize that the changes that might have to happen at the back end could be huge. So I think the complete classified solution is a very, very complex beast. Where I do believe, however, you can commoditize the bottom, I truly believe that if there is any real technology leadership from your own business, it's probably within the user interface, because that is at the very level where you can at least control your brand, the experience that the clients have within the site. They will probably never see this bottom part unless they self-service or log in to actually accept some advertising. They'll only ever see this bit at the top. So I think one of the problems early on with software as a service was this concept that people had to buy into the whole solution. In other words, if they wanted to outsource their portal, they also had to deal with the user interface they got with it. And often they felt that the user interface wasn't good enough or competitive enough in the market. Technology now means that it's very easy to actually deliver vanilla user interfaces that client can enhance, or simply deliver an API that allows access to all that functionality so that clients can build their own user interface. They don't have to actually use one supplied to them. But I think more importantly, is that if you take the concept of platform as a service, you can start to look at individual features. So you might have a guy sitting in the corner who's just doing web crawling. Now, there are companies in the world who just specialize doing web crawling, and they're all gone. No, they just do web crawling. Now, they might say to you, well, you're spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year web crawling. We've got a whole team of people sitting in Bulgaria, Uruguay, wherever, who will charge you 10% of that to set you up an XML feed every day with the crawled content. Do you really need to own the people that do the web crawling? Is that important for your business to own that? I don't think so. As long as you get the content and you can display it, you can go ahead. So it's huge cost savings. Give you an idea, you can probably set up 1,000 web crawls on real estate sites for about 8,000 euros and run them for 1,000 euros a month, to give you a concept. There's no way in a million years a company could do that internally for the same cost. So if you look at the inbound content feed management, there are clients I know who are managing, say, 10,000 feeds a day for real estate portals or car portals, 10,000 XML feeds, all of which have to be sorted, all of which are in different formats, have to be managed, XML. There's a big property portal in the UK, has 5 people doing that. Just 5 people just managing internal content feeds. You can probably do it for 20% of that cost if you outsource it, just to give you an idea again. So 5 people, £35,000, £40,000 each, so you're going to save yourself £200,000 a year. So again, trying to give you some rough numbers, but huge cost savings outsourcing some of this to an external platform. I talked about the user interface, but there's also the search engine. Many of you may have invested in Autonomy or Fast or Exalead or Cinequa. All of you probably now have heard of Lucene Solar and other open source technologies. Again, you can actually run a complete classified platform. You can even outsource the search engine so that it displays results within your own user interface. Lots of people don't realize that. You don't have to own the search engine. You don't even have to host the search index. The web now has such great latency where you can outsource the search engine itself and get somebody else to be responsible for the geocoding, the address extraction, all of the speed and response to the search technology. And then commerce management. Again, you might have your own solution, you might have your own search engine, you may do your own web crawling, but you could even outsource just the ad management, just the ad booking system that allows you to boost and promote and feature adverts, track leads, track reports, and all of that. So what I'm trying to illustrate really is that the concept of software as a service isn't just a single product that you buy, deal with their user interface. It's about a platform as a service with a menu of opportunities for you to potentially save an absolute fortune. As I said, something like Globrix, I know because I spent the money building it, probably cost around £1 million to build in raw technology and product costs. If you outsourced that now to a platform that was pre-built on that technology, it would probably cost you 10% of that to build it. So, it is a massive cost. This isn't sort of marginal, 10% savings. There's the opportunity to save millions of pounds per year, or at the very least tens of thousands of pounds per year, using a platform with a variety of services. So is SaaS or PaaS good for online classifieds? Well, I suppose you all need to ask yourself some key questions. The first one, is technology our differentiator or our USP? I've mentioned that before, but is technology really what makes your business more successful than somebody else? Does SaaS significantly lower your costs? Again, if it saves you 10%, is it worth it? Does SaaS reduce or increase the revenue opportunity? In other words, by adding 10,000 websites you crawl every day to give you more content, does it give you more users because there's more to see and there's more to boost ads against? Are there key parts of the online solution that you have to own? In other words, can you think rationally about what you could outsource to a software as a service provider? Importantly, internally, do you find constantly your online classified business is constrained by technology innovation? Do you constantly feel that you can't develop new advertising models because internally you can't keep up with development? Can you hire the right quality of software developers? Do you know that Fast, which was one of the biggest search engines in the world, there's probably only 10 partners in the world that really know that product I can think of, that really know it well, that can deliver a solution on that technology. That's not a lot. So if you're looking for staff to hire who can deal with it internally, there aren't many of them. Do you have the right technology leadership internally? Is your CTO up to the job? And above all, is software your business? Or is advertising and brand your business? I think that's an important question. So I believe you can outsource it. I've seen the proof. I've yet to see a classified business that can't gain in some way by using software as a service. But my last slide It is very important to follow best practice. And there are some horror stories out there using software as a service. So you need to have a solution which is flexible enough to find that you can control the mission-critical paths. You don't really want to find that you buy into a solution where you think you're going to do real estate. You want to do auto the next year, but you realize that technology isn't going to appear for another 5 years. You've wasted your money. Negotiate a very comprehensive SLA. I think all people in this market offer different levels of SLA. The more you get, the more you pay. But it's absolutely crucial. Equally for the supplier, really, because if you're a supplier in this business and you have a bad SLA, you go bankrupt. So it's very important to negotiate the right SLA. It might also, with your supplier, to deal with this issue of keeping up with development, to have some dedicated resource. So if you do go the platform as a service route, one recommendation might be to ask your supplier to give you a dedicated resource. People would have heard the expression FTE or full-time equivalent. Somebody you know is there to work with you. And my final point really is just ensure that your product team, if you start using software as a service, understand how to work with the SaaS supplier. The SaaS supplier is not your internal product team. They are a product supplier which is in some way generic. There will therefore be frustrations. The fact that you might save 50% of your IT product costs means there are going to be some compromises. So there's no point in thinking it's going to be exactly the same as before. But you know, the cost savings could be huge and the development opportunities are massive. And I've done it in 21 minutes and 24 seconds. So